What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Champion Living Podcast, where we believe that consistency, perseverance, and not taking life too seriously are the keys to success. I'm Doug, the founder and owner and head coach of Champion Living Fitness. Each week, I'll be joined by my coaching staff with the vision of providing trustworthy information about fitness, nutrition, and mindset, and how this all applies to being a professional rodeo athlete, as well as people from all walks of life. Are you ready to become a champion? Let's go. This episode is brought to you by Beastmaster Pro Rodeo. Rodeo season is right around the corner, and it's time for you guys to gear up with the best. We're proud to partner with Beastmaster Pro Rodeo, the go-to source for top quality gear that keeps you riding strong and performing at your best in the arena. Beastmaster isn't just about the essentials. They're constantly innovating. This season, they're rolling out brand new products designed to help you push the limits and take your performance to the next level. And as a Champion Living listener, you get an exclusive hookup. Use our discount code ChampionLiving, all one word, caps lock on. It's going to save you 10% at checkout on your entire order. So whether you're a professional or just getting started, Beastmaster has the gear you need to tackle the season ahead. Head over to beastmasterrodeo.com to gear up with the best for this upcoming season.
And then I have two from a previous marriage, and so those boys are 17 and 18. They're 15 months apart. So I have a huge age gap. You know what I mean? I had a 14-year age gap between my youngest, and my toddler, right? 14 years. So yeah, I mean, you know, I would say that it's always going to take a little bit of time to adjust to a new routine. Is all it is. It's the same routine, but it's a new routine. You're just not used to it, right? It's like for instance, with us, the first night we try to put our baby down first, take a shower because we usually shower as a family, you know, get ready, and then it's story time. We read books, and then we go to sleep, you know, or I usually put my toddler to sleep. And so we tried putting the baby down first the first night that we were home, and then the toddler after that, and that was just a shit show, man. That was like, you know, because you want to kind of have a light in the room so that, you know, my wife can check on the baby and not have to get up and turn on a light every time, and you know, so you have a dim light in there, and that was wreaking havoc on my toddler, you know, because we usually sleep with it blackout curtains. Everything's black and dark, you can't see a thing. So, you know, my toddler was like sitting up trying to like play with us in bed and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, dude, just lay down. So as soon as she started laying down, the baby started waking up, which woke up my toddler again. But, you know, Po's my toddler. Po and Pa'u is my daughter, my baby. And then Po is my toddler. So Po was like, oh, baby Pa'u, you know, and trying to reach over in the snoo and look at her and just like, shh, it's okay, you know, and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're chasing our tail here. So yeah, it's just a new routine. You know what I mean? It takes time to get to that. Like, you know, I mean, for instance, you know, like the other day I was literally cross-eyed at a baby and a toddler, and she's naked running around, and you know what I mean? And I was just like, oh my gosh, dude, and then the same thing this morning, woke up 3:30. Here we go, you know, daddy duty. You know, my wife kind of takes the night shift, you know, and I usually get up early anyways. We got animals, and, you know, like I was saying, my two older boys in high school and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm up early anyway. So that's my shift, the morning shift.
Yep. I'm on the same shift, dude.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Yeah. Real selfishly, I know you said there's a pretty big age gap there, but we're expecting our fourth right now too. Awesome. And what's it like having four, I guess?
Well, I have that huge age gap, so it's a little different, right? It's like I have a couple babysitters if I need them. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So, but man, I'll tell you, I'll keep having kids for as long as my wife will allow it.
That's cool, man.
Because so I went through everything. Like, how old? What are your ages, Paul?
So our oldest is 6, and
oh man,
so yeah, there's like 2 years 5 months in between each kid. So
yeah, so my one, like I'm kind of in the same boat with you guys, but I'm also a little bit further ahead, right? With older kids. So the one thing I would say is enjoy every single second, every phase stage that they go through. Freaking enjoy it, because it does not last long, and it'll be gone quicker than you think. For instance, having my first daughter, Poe, brought back all of the memories of my two older boys, and when they were that small, and actually it kind of softened me up, because I was like so in the mindset of like I'm raising young men, you know what I mean? I'm that's my job as a dad, and so I could be a little intense, because I mean, given what I did for a living, and just my personality in general, it's always striving to be better. It's always working towards something, right? And so that was like my mentality with my boys was, and so sometimes I forgot to stop and just like hug them. You know what I mean? It was always like, what can we do better? What can we work on? Always like, instead of just, sometimes, hey, I just want to be a dad to my son, like, let's just hang out. What's up, dude?
Yeah.
Give him a hug. Love you. Like, let me remind you of that. Like all of this, like for instance, I had a talk with my kids when they were younger teenagers, and I was like, what do you guys feel like you want to do? Both of them are like athletes, right? They're big kids. They're 6'3" and 6'5", almost 6'6". My younger son is actually almost as tall as me. And so it's like, yeah. And so when they were like 13, 14, I was like, what do you guys want to do? Like, where do you see yourselves? Like, what do do you like school? Do you want to like pursue something and like, with like education and stuff like that, or physically, or like, what do you guys see? And both of them, of course, they're like athletes. I was like, well, let me tell you, that's in my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? Let me help you. And your stepmama, it's like she's even more so than me. You know what I mean? So
bit of an athlete herself. Yeah,
just a little bit. You know what I mean? So yeah, so it was it really was, one of those moments where it was like, cool, like I got you. I set up their training. They do speed, strength. They do skill. They eat right out of my dietitian while I was fighting is their dietitian now. So he's got them on programs. You know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, I'm going to give, that's why I fought, right? Like, is because I wanted to give my kids everything that I didn't have growing up, but I wanted to give them that athletic advantage in that sense. Not everything that I didn't have growing up, because I didn't want to raise spoiled little shitheads, right? Like I'm like I was telling you guys, I'm raising young men, and in my mind, that's like respectful, loving, strong, both in mind and physically, and emotionally as well. So it's like I'm trying to set them up for the future, so that they're an asset to their family, right? So that they can build a beautiful life for themselves. They're not riding off my coattails. I told them from the beginning, you ain't getting no money. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to leave you an empire, right? If I go with an empire, that's like maybe charity or something like that. But I'm trying to, you know what I mean? I'm trying to enjoy the work that I've put in, and I'll help my kids. Don't get me wrong. I'll like, what was that saying? I'll give them enough to do something, not enough to do nothing. You know what I mean?
I like
so
that. I do love that.
Yeah. So that's my goal for them. And they understand that, like, they got to put the work in. If they end up, homeless or whatever, dude, that's on you, bro. Cause you've had every opportunity, you know what I mean? And I'm, I guess I'm kind of tough like that. Right. Like, for instance, and I know I'm just rambling, so shut me up and start asking
good. I like
questions
this is
if
awesome,
you want me to, or whatever. I don't, we can get whatever you guys want, but with my boys, it's in my house, you have to have a B or better, right? In school, a B or better, or you're grounded.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to play sports. You don't have anything to do after school. Your phones are gone, TV's gone. Like, you're done. Like, once you get your grades up, then everything goes back to normal, because you got to do your job as part of this family, just like I got to do mine. My wife has to do hers, and we're a unit. We're working together. We're moving together as a unit, and we're always progressing. We're always we're always doing our jobs, right? Like,
it teaches accountability at such a young age doing that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be contributing to the family. I don't think that's talked about enough in today's world, really, that, you know, a family isn't just a given thing. Like, yeah, you're going to have a birth mom and dad, but to be a family, you have to be a working unit together and be contributing together. And each person has their different role. And if they don't do their role, we drop the ball as a whole. Right. And that,
oh yeah,
you know, and I like that it's a B average, because an A sometimes isn't asking too much, but that's asking your kid to try and be perfect all the time. And that's not something you necessarily want to instill in a young person. So that B is like, that's just put in the work. That teaches them to put in the work. You get the reward. It sets you up better for life as a whole.
Listen, these boys are not, they're smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not like, say, scholars when in like, you know, advanced AP classes and all this kind of stuff. Dude, they don't even really try, and they get B's. So there's been times where they've fallen below a B in certain classes, and, you know, from my phone, I shut off their phone. I go and I grab their power cords from the Xbox, from the TV, from anything that they can do to entertain themselves, right? Because if you're not doing your job, you don't get a benefit from kind of the spoils. You know, you don't get paid, right? If you don't do your job, you don't get paid, and that's how they get paid, is through that kind of, through sports, right? That's an extracurricular activity. That's not a career just yet, but, you know, we're going to set you up for that. So yeah. So anyways, in our house, it's a B. If they don't have a B, like I said, I'd take everything. And their friends are like, dude, your dad's strict. And I'm like, well, I'm not setting you guys up for the future. You know, if I do give on that at all, you know, like when they were really young, they were spending money on their iPad, and they shouldn't have, and all that kind of stuff. And dude, I made them work out in the back at minimum wage. And I was like, dude, you guys want to take money? You guys are going to learn what it takes to earn $1. And I woke their asses up at 6:30. If they wanted breakfast, they had to make it themselves. They were out digging weeds and ditches and all that kind of stuff on the hillside here at the ranch. You know, they would start at 7:30. At 9:30, they would get a 15-minute break. At 11:30, they would get lunch for half an hour, unpaid. You know, and then what would that be? They would go back to work at 12. So then at 2, 15-minute break, and then at, you know, 4:30, whatever 8 hours was, and then they were done for the day. Every single day they're crying because it was 110 degrees that summer out here, and they did that for 30 days straight. Because I wanted them to work for a month at minimum wage as a laborer, to understand that, you know, this is why we work hard, you know. So and man, like, I've got people looking at me side eye and all this kind of stuff, but my boys are turning out wonderful.
Yeah,
respectful, honest.
I think we're pretty well aligned on that.
Like, they're on the same page there, man. That's cool. I want to kind of circle back on some stuff here that you mentioned in that.
Yeah.
In the beginning, well, where are you from, man? Like, where'd you grow up?
I'm originally from Hawaii.
Hawaii. So what did your family do in Hawaii, like as a kid? What did your parents do for work? What did you do growing up?
You know, at that time, my mom, I believe, was working some like restaurant jobs, like cocktail waitress and stuff like that. My dad, same kind of thing. I think he did some mechanical work or like repairs and stuff like that for the hotel industry. But I mean, we were, my mom and my dad split when I was pretty young, and I lived with both at different times, But my mom's side, we did pretty good, and my mom worked her butt off, and she did really well. My dad's side, we were super poor. There were times we were living in the car, or sounds romantic, but on the beach in Hawaii in a tent because we didn't have a roof over our head. So there's that's the background I came from, and that's what I didn't want to have for my kids, and why I worked so hard. But,
yeah. What did you do as a kid in Hawaii? Like, did you? It sounds cliche, but like, were you surfing? Were you playing sports? Like, what was fishing? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, all the above. Okay. I moved. I would go back and forth, mainland and Hawaii, with my mom, my dad. My mom, and when they split, my mom left, came to the mainland or to the continental United States. If you don't know what that is, like the 48 states, right?
Lower 48, yeah.
Lower 48, yeah.
It's funny as I had never thought about that. I grew up in Alaska, and we called the lower 48 too. And I'm pretty sure only those two states called it that. And everyone's like, "What do you mean the lower 48?" I'm like, "The other 48 states." They're like, "What?" Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So, shoot, I totally forgot where I was.
Oh, you're talking about going back and forth to the mainland in Hawaii with your mom and dad, and we were talking about some stuff that you did.
Yeah, so I would play sports, and basketball was a big thing for me. Especially yeah, right, yeah. Which I should have played football or whatever. I ended up here, so I'm glad I took the route that I did. But yeah, basketball was my sport growing up, and loved to fish. Surfing, I surfed for a while. Once I got in 11th grade in high school, I kind of stopped surfing because one time I got hurt surfing. I kind of bailed out through the back of a wave, like through the back of the wave, not over it, because it was breaking, right? So it was like a closeout. So I try to go through, and I went to go through and dive through, and the wave just caught me right and pushed my ear to my shoulder, and I pinched a nerve, and I couldn't move my arm for like weeks, or I could like do this, and so like playing basketball was nearly impossible, right? I had to get good with my left hand for a month or 6 weeks, so I got strength left in my right arm. And so so I kind of stopped surfing because I was really having fun playing basketball, and that could kind of take me somewhere. So I stopped surfing at that time and focused on basketball, and went to JC for a year, and then school wasn't for me, and then just started working, and kind of led me into, had my first kid when I was 25? Yeah, I was 20. Yeah, I was 25. Just turned. No, I was 24. I was 24 and had my first kid, and I was like, man, I'm not done. Like, I'm not done being an athlete. Like, what, like, and that sat with me since I was, early 20s, all early 20s. I was just like, kind of, I was trying to fake it, right? I was like, oh, I'm starting a business. I was a painting contractor. I did this, I did that. I was owned a dog training company. We did protection dogs, and then obedience, all that kind of stuff. And that just kind of, that nothing brought me that joy, and I always thought about like, man, I wish I would have been an athlete. And that's such a broad term, right? But for me, and we can kind of get into this because I just started bulldogging and team roping, and I actually just took 5th in my second jackpot last weekend. Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's like when I start to do something physically, it's like I pick it up very quickly, and I advance really, really rapidly. And so, I just knew I wanted to be an athlete, and I didn't know where that was going to fit. I was thinking about, man, I have the size. Should I go out, try tight end for football? And then that's like tough because they do that their entire lives, and then here comes jiu-jitsu and MMA. I started in jiu-jitsu first and got pretty good at that relatively quickly.
About that, like about the sport, is it the natural, just the physical aspect of hands-on wrestling with someone or like what was the thing that you're like, yeah, I want to try that?
Yeah, well, I think it was it's a one-on-one. It's not a team sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I don't have to go get 4 other guys to go and play. I just need one dude, right? And we can roll and we can train and get competitive, right? And that's like in 2008, I think it was 2007 maybe when I started. It was starting to blow up or it wasn't starting, it was already blown up. But to me, it was like a new world where there's all these gyms and you can go and train. All these people it was actually really cool at that time because people just wanted to train. There were some that were super cliquish, right? It's like, if you're not in our school, then, F off, and we're not training because we're going to see a tournament. It was like Karate Kid style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to beat you, and it's like, dude, let's just train, like, let's all get better. But yeah, so that was what kind of drew me into it. And then MMA just kind of came naturally, right? It's like, you start jiu-jitsu just like if you're starting wrestling or something like that. I did some tournaments, won a couple of smaller tournaments, was doing pretty well. And guy showed up at the gym. His sparring partner didn't show up. And they're like, hey, you're the biggest guy in the gym. You want to get punched in the face? And I was like, sure. I was like, yeah, I'll do it, and ended up hanging in there and just kind of putting a beating on the dude for a few rounds. And they're like, that's where it was born. That's where my story kind of started, was like, hey, the coach was like, you should give it a shot. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should, and I mean, the guy was like a lower level fighter, but he had experience. He had a few years experience. So I was putting a thumping on him. So it was,
dude,
give it a shot.
Yeah, Travis, that is absolutely wild to me, but I think it's really good for our listeners to hear. So clarifying question, like you had no wrestling or fighting background at all before your mid-20s.
I played team sports.
Sports just other sports. Thing. Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of harp on it a lot as far as like, you're better off to specialize later on and like become a well-rounded athlete, sooner and then specialize when you're ready to. Mm-hmm. And I think that your story is just 100% proof of that. Is you love to be an athlete, want to be an athlete, life starts to happen and you're like, I'm not ready to be done with this. And then you find the thing that works for you. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I found the thing that worked for me or if that was the only way, my only outlet to be an athlete. Like originally I wanted to get my black belt in jiu-jitsu, to prove to my kids. Cause like I said, I just had a kid. Right. And it was to prove to my kids that you're an athlete. So to do that, cause it's hard to get a black belt, like a real black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's not easy, right? It's 10 years. You know what I mean? You're putting your time in. That's a lot of hours on the mat. And that's if you are committed for those 10 years, you'll get a black belt. So that's what I wanted to show my kids is you're an athlete. But then it turned into MMA and I was like, and I jumped all over it because I was like, this is my chance without even really thinking about it. Right. It wasn't like a conscious decision of like, this is how I'm going to be an athlete. What it was was I saw an opportunity and that was like my chance. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That was like, this is what I like, but I wasn't thinking about it. I just did it. It was like, yeah, there's a smoker over here. Yep. Done. Signed up. Oh, there's a tournament over here. In it. Let's go to Grappler's Quest in Vegas. Done. Let's do this. All right. You got it. You know what I mean? It was like, I was just turned into a yes man when it came to anything physical or athletic. And that's what I wanted to do. So I just did it. You know what I mean? It's like, you're just in it.
That's, I mean, it's a different story for us, but we had the same exact approach, especially our first 2 years of business. We said yes to literally any opportunity that dropped in front of us, and we just went. If it cost us money, we didn't care. We went. It got our name out there. We got to spread, the word about what we're doing. And, year 3, after 2 years of that, all of a sudden, things are really falling together. We're getting, what I find is you get so many reps when you're doing that, when you're having those yes man moments. You get to put in the reps, you perfect what you're doing even more. You're facing adversity every time that you do it, especially in your sport. Every guy is different. Every opponent is different. Everyone's gonna have a different strength and weakness. You get to learn how to work with that or beat that, and if you get submitted or whatever, let's learn from that and let's get better, but you get way more opportunities to get better, which is, I don't know how did everything progress after that first year of saying yes? Did you see your level shooting through the roof, or how was it going?
I turned pro after 2 amateur kickboxing fights.
Oh, wow.
And that was in 2009. And in 2010, I signed with the UFC. You know what I mean? And then in 2011, I was ranked 3rd in the world. Or 2013, I was ranked 3rd in the world. So going from never doing a combat sport in 2008 to being ranked 3rd in the world in 2013, it's 5 years. So from literally learning how to tie a jiu-jitsu belt in 2000, maybe seven. I don't quite remember, but to being one of the most, one of the most dangerous guys in the world, as ranked 3rd in the world in 5-6 years, there's a lot that goes into it. And it's just like that was the, it wasn't even like this. It was like almost 90 degrees. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about that, and that's the expectation that I put on myself, because I know that I can. I know that I can. Other people may not think that, but I don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I don't do this for them. I do this for me, for my family, and I know that I can be successful. I know that I can always improve. And that's what I was kind of talking about before we really got started, that was my mindset with my kids, and how sometimes I just got to stop that and reel it back in, just be like, love you, kid. Like, it's all good, and that's it. Like, hug them, tell them you love them, and not be that, like, we're going to make progress off this. So, you took a step back. Well, we're going to take 2 steps forward. No, I'll just take a step back, live in it. It sucks. We're here now. It's all good, bro.
Yep. No, it's super cool, man. I was thinking back to, your story growing up, and that not lull, but when you stopped, playing sports and you were doing all these entrepreneurial type things. You had, you said a carpenter business, you're painting, remodeling, and doing all these things. And to me, I can see that you were using things that you were good at to fulfill those passions later down the road. So the cool thing to me about that is a lot of people are really passionate about something, but only want to do that thing instead of using something they may be good at to propel them even closer to that passion. You still had to make money. You still had to support a family. So you had to use these tools, being an entrepreneur, painting, doing all these things. And if you didn't, you never would have been able to get to this point, because you would have been failing in so many other pieces of life. Right. But that taught you even more work ethic. It taught you a different kind of working. You overcame adversity in different ways, and that all will translate to sport, no matter what it is. Man, just translate to the life in general. And that passion for you, it's always been being an athlete and pushing yourself to that next limit. How can I be the best version of myself in whatever I'm doing? And that just bled out into your business. And then that again turned around, and 5 years later, from never fighting in your life or rolling to being the 3rd ranked guy in the MMA is like, whoa, that's not it seems from a far or a close up view, when all you see is the success, it's like, that was a fluke. Like, that guy just got lucky. It's like, actually, if you just unwind everything and look at all of the history tape here, it's been like building for a long, long time, and you never gave up on that.
And that's what people don't see, though. They don't see the work.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I don't care about that. That's kind of my thing, is like people, Travis, it was a flu. It was this, it was that. Well, they don't know what I've done. They don't know that. Are they a part of my camp? Have they been close to me? My kids have seen me, have seen the sacrifices I've made. One of my things that, because I'm a husband, I'm a father, then whatever else I decide to do, right? And so at the time, when I was, fighting, I wasn't married. So to me, it was I'm a father first. And if I'm in the same city, county as my kids, I'm gonna go be a dad, right? I'm gonna go make them breakfast. I'm gonna bring them home from school and help them on their schoolwork. I'm gonna put them to sleep at night. I'm gonna do all this kind of stuff. My daughter's awake and running around now. So
you're good, man.
But it's like I'm gonna be a dad, and so I knew that I couldn't dedicate myself to my craft if I was close to them. So I used to leave town for 10 weeks at a time, right? And go do my training camp somewhere else where I wouldn't allow them to be a distraction. Not that they're a distraction, because I have priorities in my life, but I wanted to dedicate myself to this. And we actually just talked about it last night, because my kids are kind of having a tough time with friends and families and or other side of their family and all that kind of stuff. And they want to be an athlete, but they're also kind of getting pressured into kind of being there more for the family and doing this and that. And we just talked with them about it actually last night. We're like, listen, your sport is going to consume all. Mm-hmm. And I reminded them that, remember those times, those months that I would be gone, so I could dedicate myself to fighting, so that, I could be the best that I could be. And I reminded them, my younger son, on my first camp away, he called me up about 2-3 weeks in. He's like, Dad, are you ever coming home? Man, I still get like choked up about that, because, dude, that was the hardest thing for me to hear, right? And I would hear the changes in their voice over the phone. My oldest son, instead of being like, Daddy, oh my gosh, good to talk, all that stuff. One time he answered the phone, he's like, hey, Dad. I was like, excuse me? You what? What do you mean, hey, Dad? Like, I'm daddy, dude. I'm like, you're like, what happened to my son that, like, you know what I mean? That kid of like, oh, Dad's on the phone, or Dad's home, Daddy's home, or whatever, that didn't happen anymore. It was like, man. And so those were I was reminding them of those times, because they didn't really remember that. And I had to remind them, this is what it takes to be an athlete. You guys want to do it, this is what it takes. You're unless you've been there, you're not going to understand it. Said it takes such great sacrifice. Said if there's something scheduled for your sport, whatever else you have in your life is taking a back seat. Mm-hmm. Priority. Mm-hmm. If you want to be great at this is what it takes, son.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's so huge. I was having a talk with a client of ours. He's a young guy, he's early 20s, is just setting out on his first year pro rodeo, going full time. And, has been at home. His dad and brother depend on him a lot for work. He's got a girlfriend that's awesome. And he's been gone for, I think it's about a month now. And he kind of called me the other day and just needing to vent, really, and was kind of working through those same things that you're talking about. Lots of pressure from, not that they're meaning to put extra pressure on you, but to go home and work. Like, when are you going to be back so we can get some work done? Or are you going to be home for Valentine's Day, from the girlfriend and whatnot? And he said, I'm coming to this realization that in order for me to achieve what I really want to achieve in this sport, I'm going to have to be selfish. And he's like, I'm realizing that my support system is so, so crucial from those people that are not meaning to, again, but putting this extra pressure on me. And I told them, man, you got to have those real talks with them about how you're feeling. And because of what they are asking. And like, it's not that you don't want them to ask help, but they have to realize also on the flip side that you're going through a lot as well. This is your first go ever out on the road, or, doing anything like this. And everything depends on you. You have a ton of pressure on you from yourself. So that support system is so crucial. Hearing your story here, like, what was your support system like during those times to keep the family seeing the whole goal and the whole picture? Because at the end of the day, you doing what you do is the reason that y'all can do what you want to do, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of tough because I wasn't with my boy's mom at the time. You know what I mean? We had split right before, like in 2010, right before I got signed. And really it's hard to really, I wouldn't say that I had a great support system. Like I would say that I had my kids and my drive for my kids, because I didn't really, I'm sorry. No, my best friend, Josh, right in the beginning, this is in the beginning. My best friend, Josh, was there for me day one. He was my greatest support system. At that time I was scraping by. I think my first fight I made $12,000. You know what I mean? Because I won. I was making 6 and 6. I fought, a few months later, made $8,000 because it was a draw, and then I didn't fight again for 10 months. So they put me on ice because my fight sucked. Right, the guy was holding my shorts. I got tired. He got tired. It was with Czech Congo, and it wasn't a great fight. So they would kind of be like, dude, this is the big leagues. You need to come out here and put on a freaking show. And we didn't put on a show. I didn't put on a show. So they get on. That's how they create that drive for you to put on a show, right? They put you on ice for a little while, and you're not making money. So, but during that time, my best friend Josh, he was my support system. That and then the drive that I had to make something of myself for my kids. Reminding myself of why I started fighting is because I wanted to show my kids that they can be athletes. It's just a mindset thing. Physically, you can do it. Talent wise, you guys are going to be able to do it. You come from me. You know what I mean? Like I believe in you. You're going to believe in you. I know you can do it, just like I know I can do it. So it's a decision that you have to make. And then walking them through all these different workouts that they have to do. They have speed training, weightlifting, route running, blocking, skill set training. Like they both play both sides of the ball, so tight end and defensive end. And my other son plays tight end, and he was playing inside linebacker, but I think he's going to move to defensive end as well. So it's like, all this stuff with the nutrition, with the school training, with extra training that we're doing on the side, it's 7 days a week. You know what I mean? These kids aren't getting a day off.
Is their goal to play pro ball though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
football, yeah.
Like, talk about looking at the goal there. The goal is to be the 0.001% best football players in the world, right? Yep. And to do that, 7 days a week is what is going to take. And that's just being real about the goal. And we see this a lot with rodeo athletes is they want to be a world champ. They want to go to the NFR. They're putting in, they go to the gym 1 day a week. They get on the spur board maybe 1 day a month, and they go to 10 rodeos in a month, and they wonder why they're not getting better. And it's because the preparation is piss poor, and hearing, how old are your kids? How old are those boys? You said they're
17,
in high school.
18 now.
Okay. How long have they been training? Like, when did you start weight training, all that stuff with them?
I would say probably 7-8 years, but even before that, like when they were doing peewee and stuff, we'd get them on meals. And because my one son was a little bit bigger, So you had to lose some weight. So we had, that's like kind of where the start of all this happened was like, your meals. And, I wasn't big into weightlifting. I would do a lot of plyos and body weight and that kind of stuff while they're younger. And then I was going to let their body mature more into their high school years before they really started hitting the weights. Right. And so that was what I like, pull-ups, push-ups. We'd take them in the gym, do like, 10-pound dumbbell kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And like reps and to failure, but keeping your form during failure because you believe in yourself and you can do it even though you're tired. You still do it correctly when you're tired, But yeah, I mean, it's kind of just been something that we've always done. And even through sports, through playing different sports, basketball and football and all that stuff, like it's a form of training. You know what I mean? Like they're running up and down the court, they're learning how to move right and left, they're going at a decent speed forward. That takes balance, it takes athleticism. They have to be able to judge, at any given point what to do. And so it starts when they're young. It's just a different kind of training.
Man, with rodeo athletes and especially rodeo parents, and we're not throwing shade or anything, but it's very, very common that all that kid has done their entire life is ride a horse and practice the event that they're going to be doing supposedly when they're 20 years old, and they're like 8 right now. Right. And so we see huge strength imbalances happen at a very young age. And a lot of times these events, goat tying even, these young girls getting off a horse at a high rate of speed, their bodies, injuries. It's insane, dude. Like I've worked with girls like 3 ACL replacements and they're 16 years old. I'm like, we got to pump the brakes here. We've got some big issues going on. And listen to you talk about, you get it, man. Like you understand how fitness, how nutrition, and how the work ethic all comes together, but also how the body works. And throwing weights at those kids when they're 10 years old is not going to be the best, especially if they're so uncoordinated they can't even do an air squat, and I love the to failure at tempo, but with perfect form, not just flopping around getting it done because it's it's down and up, that's a rep. Like, no, do it correctly. And that translates over years to whoever does that is going to be a badass at whatever they want to do. And it's looking back at your journey now, that escalation happened because all those years you put into being an athlete, you were well-rounded before you ever even got started. And we see this in rodeo a lot too. We get guys, girls, I'm 22 or 23. Is it too old? Am I too old to start? All these guys have been doing it since they're 15. Like, actually, you're going to be better off than most of these guys because they put in so many poor reps and didn't learn correctly and had no athletic ability. All the athletic abilities come from the bad reps, just building them up and up and up. Right. So we see guys like Cade Saunier. He was an incredible collegiate baseball player. His dad was a world champ or NFR saddle bronc rider. Cade made his first NFR in 4 years. Just same thing, man. Never been on a bucking horse. Has only thrown a baseball. Taught him how to ride bucking horse. He already had the fitness and athleticism. He's among the most elite guys in the world right now. So just hearing the development that goes in is so important, I think, for any parent out there that has their kid in sports. Get them started early, but start them the correct way and teach them how to move correctly. And then everything will culminate after that. It will build. They know how to do an air squat. One of the first time after 2 years, they're old enough to squat, or they're 14, you're putting a barbell on them. Turns out they did a back squat probably pretty perfect the first time they ever did it, and we're getting benefits from that movement every time they did it. It's so important, man. It's so cool to hear a real life story of that aren't our stories, and so a sport that's totally different. Do you ever have? Do they ever roll or anything like that?
No, actually, but when I was fighting, I was gone for if I fought, I say 2.5 times, because sometimes in a calendar year, you fought twice, but I might have been in camp at the end of the year, right? So if I fought twice in a year, I'd be gone for, what'd that be, 2, 4, 5 months? Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'd be home for 7 months, and that would be cut up. If I had a fight in March, end of March, I would leave middle of January. Then I'd come back and, right after the fight, maybe early, right at like the day after the fight, I'd come home. So end of March, and then I would be home for maybe 3 months, and then back off to camp because I had another fight, 10 weeks after that. So yeah, it was kind of tough, but those are the sacrifices that people don't see, and even when I'm there, it's like, what was I doing when I was there? Fucking training.
Yeah.
I was working. You know what I mean? Like, I remember taking my boys to workouts with me, and, they would like, oh, it's time to have fun, and I'm like, cool, you guys can hang out, have fun. I would be doing strength conditioning class, and, I'd be in the middle of a set, and my kid would come up and ask me something. I'd be like, son, this is your warning, right? Daddy's at work right now. I know this is like normally fun, but I'm at work right now. Don't do that again. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are cool. After my workout, I'll get to you. But this is where I need to focus, because if I'm not getting better during this workout and I'm just getting through, and I can dedicate and I can take my focus off of my workout and dedicate it to my kids and let them, do that, then I'm not getting as good as I could have been during that workout. I'm not pushing myself hard enough. If I'm breathing normal enough to have a conversation, I'm not working hard enough. You know what I mean? If I'm not actively recovering in between those sets, I wasn't working hard enough. If I'm not taking those big, deep breaths, not because I want to, but because I have to, I wasn't working hard enough. And that's what, it's just that mindset. And people don't understand that. And that's what I was also telling my boys is like, listen, the other side of your family, they're just not going to understand that because they haven't done that.
Yeah.
They haven't done that in they haven't been an athlete. They haven't dedicated themselves like that. So you can't expect them to understand. And my wife actually brought up a great point to it. And she was like, well, I'll tell you what, the other side of your family is not going to be like, oh, we're just writing off Keave and Kaleo because, they didn't show up to this event, to this birthday, or they're not taking part in Christmas or Thanksgiving. I said, they're going to be sad. They're going to be upset, maybe even disappointed. I said, but you're still going to be their family member. You know what I mean? So they're not going anywhere, but this is what you need to do to improve. There's no excuses, right? It's like, there's no excuses. There's no reasons. Just get it done.
Dude, for our listeners, who is your wife?
Ronda Rousey.
Okay, so you guys are definitely both not losers.
Yeah.
You guys know a little bit about winning and about high pressure situations, and to have not just one person, but two people together like that is, man, I think that creates an incredible, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like environment.
Yeah. For those guys to better themselves. And, they have pressure from one side of the family that is totally different. But like you said, they will never understand because they've never applied themselves that way. And that's the coolest part about having a mom and, dad like you is you do get it. You're firsthand there. But also there's a lot of guys that don't have parents that have that, but they have a buddy or a friend's parent that is there in their support system. And I've got a lot of friends that have made the NFR or done something, huge in their life from no support of their family whatsoever. But those people that did support them became their family. Man, you guys are a powerhouse, I'm sure. And those little ones are going to be absolute freaks of nature. But
I'm really excited, for my kids, for my older ones, and then also these because unfortunately for my two older boys, they were the first crop, and so I made a lot of mistakes with them. You know what I mean? So this next group is like there's so much more patience there, I've already seen examples of it where before I would have lost my shit or something or snapped at my kids or something like that, where now I'm like, I feel that feeling of like wanting to kind of snap at a 3-year-old, but then it's like, she's only 3, dude.
Yeah,
like you're the dick if you snap. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you're like, and it's funny because I'll tell my wife too sometimes, like, babe, you're arguing with the 3-year-old. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to talk sense into a 3-year-old. Sometimes it just needs to be like, because I said so.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're not asking them to do something. We're asking them to put their bowl in the sink, and you don't need to argue with them about it. It needs to be like, you need to do that because that's, you know what I mean? Like, again, we kind of link it back to earlier where everybody has their job in the family. We move as a unit. It's not my job to clean up after you. Mm-hmm. See what I mean? Like, I don't get paid for that, buddy. You guys can pick up after yourself. You're more like, you know, you guys
paid for the mess they just made. So it's like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You know, I made the meal. Yeah. You'll clean up. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
No, that's good lessons. I think that in my book, that's good parenting. But I could totally relate with my wife who was getting upset with Wilder, and he's a month old. Like, what? Like, just stop squirming. I'm like, he has no idea. He doesn't know anything. Like, that's actually because we've only slept 4 hours a night, honey. That's where the frustration's coming from. Hey, I want to flash back to some stuff. You were talking about competing like 2.5 times, 3 times a year. Mm-hmm. Dude, in rodeo, we get to compete every weekend, or in the summertime, you get to compete 5 out of 7 days. There's a lot of reps that you get to drown out the bad ones with, right?
That's actually what I'm looking forward to.
I was going to say, I bet you are. I bet you are.
Stuff like, you know, and I'm just in the beginning. Like I said, I had my second jackpot and I took 5th, and dude, so my first jackpot, I skunk. I didn't catch a thing. I was nervous. Let me tell you, it was my first ever jackpot. It was a different environment. I'm walking in, I'm cruising into the box when it's not my time. They're yelling at me to get out of the box. I'm sitting out of the box and they're trying to call my name. I'm like, damn, dude, like it got me flustered, right? I was completely missing animals. It was like I left there with my tail tucked. And just like, oh my gosh, like I embarrassed myself so bad. Like I have the videos of it. My wife took videos of it, and then
you gotta send that to me.
Man, it kind of pissed me off because I was so embarrassed. That's how I get mad. I'm like, I'm gonna do something about it, right? So I went and I trained and we worked on these things, and man, I came out the box and roped my first 2, missed my third, roped my caught 2, missed 2, caught 1, and then missed 1. So I was 50-50. And then we ended up placing. It was best out of 2, whatever. On the first 2, my healers didn't catch, so it is what it is. I was just glad that I caught, and it was so funny because I had the biggest smile on my face after I caught my first one, and that dude was like, man, I'm sorry, bro. I just missed. You know, I was like, buddy, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I was like, let me tell you something. That was the first time I ever caught something in a jackpot or a competition. I was like, that's all I care about. I was like, did I give you a good handle? He's like, dude, I couldn't have asked for it. He's like, honestly, I didn't expect that, and that's why I was out of position. I was expecting you to be a lot slower. So I was out of position, and I just missed. And I was like, then I don't care. I said, as long as I gave you a good handle and you saw it and you were like, normally I would catch that, just whatever. You know, it's tough because you don't practice with these people. You don't do any of that kind of stuff, right? So it's like, man, it's tough. It can be tough. It's like a pickup basketball. Yeah, exactly.
And that's rodeo, baby.
Man, I think that's so. I don't have any team roping experience, and I'm sure that we have listeners that have way more than me, and they'll think I'm silly. But like, I feel like that's the mentality you have to have in team roping.
Dude,
because like all the other
goldfish mentality,
all the other for sure, all the other events it's on you, except in team roping. Like takes 2 to tango there,
and serious wrestling got to have a hazer.
Well, yeah, for sure, but I think that's a really good mindset to have, and I really want to know more about your progression into rodeo. But
can I go back to something though?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I got off.
Did you ever get those nerves? And so Cody Johnson, we just did an episode with him. We were talking about team roping. He's like, I can go out in front of 80,000 people and I'm fired up. You run me in the box and I have got my heart is in my throat. I'm flustered, right? Mm-hmm. What was it like when you were going into a fight? Did you get nervous? How did you manage the mental side of that? And then again, I was talking about you compete 3 times in a year. Like what if one goes bad? Like, how do you control the head from not going there again? You don't get that quick redo. You don't get a chance to say, oh, fuck, let me have that one back. Let me go run it back and do it again.
Yeah.
How do you manage all
that? So the, on the last part of that question, right? some of the best advice I got was actually from Pat Barry. He's an MMA. He was an MMA fighter. He now coaches. He's with Rose Namajunas and all that kinds of. He told me one time I actually won, but then I lost like a little bit later or something like that. And he just, he's like, man, I'll live with it. Like live in it, like be there, feel the suck, right? Feel how just shitty that is. Feel how you never want to be there again, and then go do something about it. Mm-hmm. But you got to live there. You can't just brush it off necessarily. Like there's times to brush it off, right? It's like, oh, well, I hit a 1-2 and the guy countered me. Okay, cool. Brush it off, learn from that mistake, get back after it, right? Like that's the time to brush it off, but learn. You know what I mean? Not to be like, oh my God, man, he hit me with that counter. And when you lose a fight, it's a little different. You have time to reflect and this and that and the other, and you just kind of, what's going to motivate you, right? And to me, I knew that I never wanted to lose again, kind of a thing, and so then that's what I did when I'd lose. I'd live in that kind of that mind that like, why am I here? What, you know what I mean? And just take in the suck. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like this sucks. But then that motivates you to do something about it. Mm-hmm. Right. And you get to work and you start making those changes and you start progressing a lot quicker for me that way. Mm-hmm.
I think that's, you're just going back to those basics, man, and like tuning in on what got you there. And, that feeling, it's almost, I didn't know I was doing it, but I definitely had that mindset with myself. I would live in it. At first I lived in it way too long. It would be like a dwelling thing.
That's the other thing. Gotta be careful.
It would
about
hold
that.
me back. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And eventually I started transforming that outlook into especially when I was redoing things the right way, doing the reps the right way, and they were hard or whatever. And that success I would feel after doing it the right way, I would remind myself like, that was good, but we're only doing it good because that felt so bad before. Like keep doing it good because I don't ever want to feel like that again. And every time I did it good, it got me further away from that feeling of the bad that I had, that bad taste in my mouth from an experience, right? And so getting to tie them together really, in my head, got to just, I never forgot, but I also didn't. That's not all I thought about. I only thought about the good that was never letting me forget.
And I think I forgot that part when I was talking about it is, you live there, but then you let that motivate you and you go do something about it. And that gets you out of that space. You know what I mean? You don't want to live there forever. You don't want to let it like haunt your dreams. You know what I mean? But in the short term you do, because you never want to be there again. You're going to do whatever it takes. When you have those 20 sprints, you're going to do the back 10 like you did the front 10 because you don't want to lose again. You know what I mean? When you're cramping up and you're doubled over and all that kind of stuff, and that whistle blows, you're going to run your ass up that hill because you don't want to lose again. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's what I kind of mean by you live there and you remember that feeling so that it motivates you because you don't want to ever feel that again. Don't forget that feeling, because that'll motivate you.
Mm-hmm. In your training, how much, when it gets to the fighting portion, how much of that is dependent on just reaction? So in rough stock events, bull riding, bareback riding, saddle bronc riding, we preach everything is, you're never going to be able to recreate that intensity that happens in the arena, in a gym, or even in a training scenario without running the live animal in there, right? And so that's kind of the hard part, is a lot, especially the horse riding, bareback riding, the more reps you have, it's not necessarily going to help you because it's so hard on your body. So being able to train yourself and trust your reactions is the key. So we get them on a spur board, the thing never moves. But if you can teach someone to ride this thing perfectly, the theory, and we've seen it happen time and time out, is we put them on a horse for their first time, their second time, and they're doing things that guys that have been on 100 horses can't do because their body is reacting. We've trained them to do the thing. It's what I'm trying to get at is like when you walk on the floor there in the on the cage, you're like, all right, like, are you thinking? Is there, I'm going to do this, I'm waiting on him to do this, or is it, I mean, to me, it's just reaction. The guy's doing something, you're reacting to it, right? So you have to trust that training. Right.
If you're waiting, you're going to get knocked out, right? So, yeah, the whole point of the camp, right? And this is a little bit different than say like rodeo, because you have so many competitions in a week possibly, or in a month, and all that kind of stuff. But in fighting, you go and you get partners that are gonna kind of mimic your opponent. You're gonna set up your training so that because like this guy's really known for this. So when I see the beginning of that, this is what I'm going to do. Your whole camp is to develop that habit. And then in the fight night, you just go out there and you stick to your game plan, right? Whether it's, standing up, keep distance, I want boxing distance, I want to shoot in, and I want grappling, I want clinch or whatever it is. It's like that's, but your body just kind of takes over because you're already in the mindset. You already have the reactions, right? You already know what you're going to do because you know what this guy's going to do.
Dude, it's so similar to rodeo. It's unreal, this sport. And even just the individual side, but like, what's representation look like in that sport? Like for like sports agencies, like getting deals. Obviously the most elite guys are getting the deals, but are you having to represent yourself in the beginning a lot of this before you're getting approached by, let's say, an agent or something like that? Are you having to seek out agents? So like, how does that work?
When you're in the local scene, usually you are just kind of, like I had my naked baby's gonna run into the scene here.
That's all right.
We'll cut it out.
We can edit.
So yeah, in the beginning, I would, friends of mine would give me $500 to fight, put their logo on there or something like that, but then, getting ready or soon going into UFC, you have a manager and they would get you some more deals and all that kind of stuff. And that's actually that I was wondering about that with rodeo actually, is like, what does that look like? Because again, so we'll talk about my real quick about, because it kind of leads into it, but we can shoot back to it all. Like I've only been riding a horse for maybe 2 years. You know what I mean? 2.5 years is, I got my horse about 2 years ago, and I started to ride a little bit before that. I went and got a horse because I went to a branding, and I was on like part of the ground crew, and I was like, dude, I want to be up on a horse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I want to learn how to do that. And so I've done maybe a handful of brandings. I've done.
Are they to a fire, or are they running through a sweet shoot?
Yeah, to the fire.
Dude, that's the best. That's cool. That's the real way to do it. And there's nothing like it. It's so much fun. I love it. Yeah, dude, I love it.
Oh my gosh. I could do that every day.
Oh yeah.
Like seriously. So I've been to maybe, two of our own and maybe two others. Right. So I've been to four brandings. And then about 3 months ago, I just started turning steers. And so, and that's been my progression, and 3 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I had my first jackpot, skunked. Last week got 5th, and we actually should have got 3rd, but I messed up. I faced, and I shouldn't have faced. It should just kept going because it's based off the healer's rope, not the head rope. But I was like, again, learning curve, newbie, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was kind of, that was a question. I wasn't going to ask you that, but that's just a general question I had. Was like, how does that stuff work? Are there managers in the rodeo game and all that kind of stuff? And
yeah, there is. Again, like you said, like the local level, amateur level, that's all it's on them. Not 100% of the time, usually. Yeah. And if they're an amateur they have an agent, they're not going to be an amateur for long. There are agents now. It's few and far between in rodeo. And I think that it's just because the sport, man, we've been behind the times, right? We're just hitting this peak of like, we're growing. The sport is growing immensely. And so we're seeing a lot more numbers on television, on streaming apps. The reason that people sponsor other sports is because of the numbers, how many people are going to be able to see their logo, right? And we're just now getting to that. So there are some agencies out there. I actually have an agent for myself. They're called Tough Draw Sports. His name's Brad Hughes. They're on the East Coast, and they're great guys. They understand the sport. They actually just put on the Honda Rodeo in Arizona. That was their production. And so they're kind of pioneering this new look at rodeo. And my biggest thing is we need to be able to get rodeo and the sport, what's up, dude, into more cities, right? Like everyone in the country goes to rodeo in their county every year, and you go to a city and there's maybe one opportunity to go see a PBR or something like that, but there's no real opportunity to see a rodeo and see it in a venue like the Diamondback Stadium. I think it's called Bank of America or something like that, but it's called a festival, Rodeo Fest. And so it's 3 nights of live music. And I mean, like headliners. They had Hank Williams Jr. They had, do you remember any of the other ones, Paul? It was like, it blew my mind. It's like Turnpike and someone else. Like, they packed this thing.
Big names.
Yeah, big names. And first time ever. And they invite the athletes. So and it's set up for the elite guys. And they invite, let's say 5 rookies or 5 guys that are not pros right now, but have a chance at beating the pros. It's kind of set up like the American a little bit, but they take care of them. They put them up in a nice, they get the full experience as being a professional athlete. And so I got off on a tangent, but yeah, Brad Hughes in Tough Draw Sports has been in charge of that. And so they're doing some of the agency work. But yeah, same thing, man. It's all on yourself until you hit a certain level, and nobody knows about any of this in rodeo. So it's really new. We teach about it at our Optimal Performance Academy. We do a school that's 4 days. It's an athlete development camp. These guys are coming to learn how to be professional rodeo athletes. So how to work out, how to eat correctly, how to enter rodeos, how to make your social media attractive to sponsors, how to be a good ambassador for the sport of rodeo on your social media. And then we had one more. I can't remember, Paul.
All
of it. We do everything.
No stone left unturned.
Yeah, we turn every stone over. And then 2 days of live action, getting on bucking horses, getting on bulls. And it's been incredible what we've seen. Started 3 years ago, and our goal was to cut the learning curve down of rodeo. We all banged our heads against the wall, rodeo, and it took us hundreds of head to get on before we figured out anything. And we're like, how can we shorten that? And so we started the school, and the first group of guys we ever had come through our horse riding school was 3 years ago. Since then, I think, was there 12 guys there, Paul? 12, something like that. I think 6 or 7 of the guys have made the circuit finals since then.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's what we're looking for. That's the stuff we want. So we're seeing this evolution of the athlete. Guys in rodeo are actually treating themselves like athletes, which is another huge part of the agent stuff, the getting sponsors. Like, you can't smoke cigs and drink Coors Light and be a role model for a lot of companies. Besides Marlboro and Coors, it limits you. And so you have to be we teach them about being just a representation of another brand. Like, don't work with someone that you don't align with. Find people that, resonate with you. So there's a lot of cool things happening in the sport, but hey, I want to talk about rodeo with you for a minute, but can we touch on Browsey Acres? Because full transparency, that's how I found, that's how I associate you. I didn't know you back when you fought. I obviously knew who your wife was, but we have a coach, his name's Matt Hooks, and he has been in jiu-jitsu for maybe 2 years, but addicted. He loves it. He got his what's the second, is it blue belt? Your second blue belt? So he got his blue belt in 6 months, and the coach straight up told him, he was like, I do not want to give this to you because this shouldn't happen this fast, but you're ready. So I told him we were talking with you, and he freaked out, dude. He's like, what? Do you know who that is? I'm like, yeah, he owns Browsey Acres. He's about to freaking slap me through the phone. He's like, no. But talk about Browsey Acres and what you and your wife are doing with that. And again, you turn a passion into something that is providing for your family.
Yeah. So that's where it started, actually, is just providing a good source of protein for our family. I like to bow hunt, so that
did we just become best friends?
that was my primary source of protein when right after fighting and stuff like that, or even during fighting. go out, get an elk or a nilgai or deer or something like that. Yeah, so we being here in Southern California, you don't get the opportunity just to like go somewhere close and get a good meal, like, or get a good animal, right? You got to go like kind of far and all that kind of, and if you really want, like, I like the backcountry hunt where you go camp and you're out there for 10 days and or 2 weeks or whatever, and walking up to the top of a mountain, maybe get cell service and be like, honey, I'm okay, and then go walk back down, but so you don't really get that around here. So we bought a place out here, has 2.5 acres, and we just wanted to see what it'd be like to raise our own beef. And so just doing research, all that kind of stuff, everything kept going back to Wagyu for both, taste, tenderness, but also health reasons. And people associate with a lot of fat content, and there is, but it's the healthy kind of fat, right? It's the monounsaturated fatty acids and has like good omega-3s and 6s and all that kind of good stuff. So we ended up raising one here. We ended up raising one here and harvesting it. His name was Kobe, and he for the Wagyu, Kobe Wagyu.
Kobe,
So we harvested them. I was crying, my wife's crying. It was like the first big animal I've ever killed that was kind of like a pet. He follows around the backyard, for scratches and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so we get the hanger steak inside because we quartered him up and took him to the butcher. Brought the hanger steak inside, cooked it up that night, and I took the first bite, and I was like, what is this? Like, this is so good. Like, the stuff in the store is such BS, like, what are they? And that's why it also kind of started, right? It was always like, I wanted better protein. That's why I'd go hunt, But then we ate this beef and we're like, holy moly. Like, I raised this in my backyard. You know what I mean? Like, feeding a simple 4-way and a grass hay. Like, how is this possible? So it just kind of naturally progressed into like that changed our lives, right? Because we're like, this is literally the best steak we've ever eaten. We've eaten at all the steakhouses you could ever eat at. And I didn't even know how to cook a proper steak at the time. I just threw it on the grill, a little bit of salt and pepper, and took a bite and was like, my kids called it butter beef and, all this kind of stuff. It was just so freaking good. So we just wanted to continue it. And then what it kind of grew into was regenerative ranching and putting more back into the soil than you're taking out. There's a lot of, I believe a lot of room to improve in that capacity, in the ag industry. I think people are getting we've gotten so far away and trying to feed the world instead of feeding our neighborhood that, I feel like things are out of balance, regenerative ranching to me is the way to raise these animals. It's, who said it? It was Joel Salatin said, you're letting cows be cows, chickens be chickens, and pigs be pigs, and that's what they're supposed to do. And they're meant to feed us, but if you try to put them in a pen and shoot them up full of hormones and antibiotics and trying to make $1 off them, you're going to run into these problems and the issues that we're seeing now. And that was actually kind of a thing. I don't know if it was true, but there were a couple fighters in the UFC that got popped for steroids and they said that the meat that they consumed had steroids in it, which I don't know if it was enough of a lie, if that's what it was, or the truth, that it scared me. And so that's why a big reason I started hunting, because I don't trust that stuff. You know what I mean? And we're getting tested, and that's my livelihood. So am I going to put my livelihood on the line with a piece of meat that I buy in the store that didn't even taste that great. You know, for us, we have full transparency. I know exactly everything that goes into that meal. You have athletes that are eating it and raising their kids on it. You know, I'm putting that food into my children. So I know I know where that food came from. I know what we put into that animal. You know what I mean? And it tastes way better than the store anyways.
Way better.
That's where Browsey Acres started, right? So we bought a ranch up in Oregon. You know, we're producing American and full blood Wagyu now.
Dude, how cool!
And that's what got me into roping.
Yeah.
That you know, not because I didn't want to just be an owner, right? Like I'll go up to the ranch and at the time, like I've worked heavy machinery here, and so I learned how to do that. And so I would go up to the ranch, I'd dig water lines for the guys, for the animals, and all that kind of stuff. And then I would learn how to also ranch. You know what I mean? And that to me is the fun side of it. You know, and I know that I see it from a different point of view because I am an owner. So, you know, but if I lived up at the ranch, oh man, I would be having so much fun every single day, even on the shitty days. You know what I mean? Yep. That's what I would love to do. To me, there's nothing better than riding through a pasture with a little bit of fog as the sun's as the sun's coming up. You see your cows, you see wildlife, it's quiet, there's that little chill in the air, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it is
the best.
What else could a man ask for right now? You know, you have your family with you, and it's just like, this is it, man. You know, and that's where roping started, because I didn't want to be a ground crew, and I didn't want to sit there and be like, oh yeah, you guys are doing a good job. I don't even know what's happening right now, but you guys are doing great. You know, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in the action. I wanted to be a part of it, you know? And so, that's where it came from. And then being down here in Southern California, so far from the ranch, and my horse is down here, I don't want my horse just sitting around. You know what I mean? We've made it a rule here where every animal here has a job and carries its weight one way or another. You know what I mean? And so my horse, we take him up and ranch on him, but now he's my head horse, and we go out there and we practice, you know, 3 times a week. And if there's a jackpot, we go in. Or
you got some buddies that you're roping with, like practice pin stuff.
So I have, I actually met this Sissy Barnes is her name. And she's actually been the one that's been teaching me. Cool. I have no connections in this world. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know anybody in these areas. I just found a place down in Escondido. It's like about an hour and a half drive from me, that they'll rope a few days a week or on a Saturday. So I go down there on Saturdays. And I'm like, as I'm going to these jackpots, I'm kind of meeting some people and, you know, making different connections so I can get out there and stay a little bit more active with it, because, man, now I got the bug now. You know what I mean? Like I want to, dude, if they had a jackpot every day, I would go enter. You know what I mean? Like I really would. And I'm already bringing my other horse down from the ranch, and I'm going to have him be my practice horse so I can kind of save my horse down here, because he's actually a really good horse. I got lucky finding him. I got $14,000 off of a sale, and he's a little hot, you know, but, and he makes you ride him, right? Like you need to know how to ride a horse. And that's one reason my riding ability has gotten to where it's at, is because of that horse, because I've made mistakes on him and I've come off a few times. And so if I don't want to do that, I better learn how to ride him really well, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's made me a better rider. And I just, you know, I fall off and I get back on and I do it 2 more times, because I'm not scared. You know, I'm gonna go do what I got to do. So,
dude, so cool. Damn, I had a really good question. I just forgot it. What are your training now? Are you like, you still lifting, doing stuff to keep yourself, you know, fit, mobile? As you've gotten older, do you see that the mobility is a huge part of what you're doing? Like, how does that all working for you now?
Yeah, man. So, lifting, I do 2 days on, 1 day off, for lifting, but I'm doing, either cardio or active recovery on my days off. But I also do cardio almost every day. So what I usually do as a warm up is I'll either do 5 minutes at 450 kilowatts on like the Airdyne bike, the Rogue. So that's like my warm up, or I'll do 20 minutes at 400 kilowatts as a warm up, depending on what I'm working out. Usually I'll do the longer 20-minute thing if I'm doing my upper body, and then I'll do the shorter 5-minute, but it's more intense, right? When I'm doing lower body, and then I usually do either elliptical or go on a walk for about half hour to an hour for cardio or something like that. And then I'm doing just more recently in the recent months, I've been doing a lot of mobility stuff, especially with my hips. Being a bigger guy, I've always had tight hamstrings, and my glute medius has always been an issue for me. Like, I pulled it one time when I was an idiot when I was younger, starting fighting. I tried to do a duck under, and big guys aren't really supposed to move like that. So, so I like pulled my glute medius, which I don't even know how you do that, but I did it. And since then it's like, it messes with me. And so I've been doing a lot of like, just movements and leg lifts to work the front hips, and glute medius workouts and deep squats. And I'm sure there's names for it, but when you bring your knees in and touch the ground when you're in that deep squat position, you're kind of doing those, and then do the Cossack squat stretch and moving side to side, and all those stretches, doing this, and like you just got to maintain that. That's one of the talks I had with my boys the other day too, is like, yeah, it's fun working out for your sport. I said, the boring part is the recovery, but that's a job. Just like your diet's a job. That those two things feel more like a job than when you are training for your sport, because training for your sport is fun. We do it because we love it, right? It's like, yeah, let's get to work. I'm getting better. I'm getting stronger. Heck yeah,
it's like doing admin for your business. Like, it's not sexy. Nobody wants to do taxes. It. It's the first thing you're going to try and skip and get out of. But if you don't do it, you're not going to have a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But man, like in rodeo, I think that is the number one thing that we need to get across to these athletes that are wanting to achieve these big goals, because that part of it has never been shown or taught in rodeo and professional rodeo. No one, like you were saying with Travis, like no one gets to see that hard work that went in. Like, that's part of your job. Your job is to perform. The way you perform is your fitness, your nutrition, and then your skill specific training. And so rodeo athletes are like the kings of, I work like 1 day a week and it's going pretty good, so I'll just keep doing that for a while. And they can get away with it for a long time, because again, we're still in this weird phase of athletes are transitioning over, but we're starting to see these guys, they won't last. They won't have a lasting career, unfortunately. So you have to keep working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happened in the UFC. When I kind of started, was the time, same kind of time where you saw people really starting to take it serious. You know what I mean? It like, look at Ultimate Fighter 1. When they put all the fighters in the house, they're all freaking partying and drinking, and then have a fight the next day. You know what I mean? You're like, what do you do? Like, now you're like, what are you doing? Back then you're like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh, he knocked them out too. He's so badass. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like they would walk to the cage with like a beer and a cigarette, and you're just like, dude, nowadays you're getting smoked. You know what I mean? If you try to do, like, very, very few people would be able to do like something like that and get away with it, and that's where I've kind of been like watching rodeo and more lately over the last few months. And she has clothes on now. and I've noticed that 100%, where it's like, man, this is like the beginning of the UFC.
Yep.
This is like there's the turning of the page right now where it's like, you're going to, even in the coaching, right? I feel like finally we're starting to get the intellectuals that were athletes that are able to now put together comprehensive coaching plan for their athlete, whether it's physical, training, nutrition, skill training, how to break it down. Like I have roping.com and I love watching some of the videos and I'm pointing out the ones that I like compared to ones that I don't like, because I'm like, he has a mind for coaching. This guy's just an athlete and is just babbling. Do you see what I mean? Which is, there's nothing wrong with it. It is what it is. Like, call a spade a spade. But that you're starting to see that more, and especially as the payouts start to increase, you're going to start getting more and more athletes into it, which are going to bring more coaches, bigger athletes, better athletes, and guys are going to get phased out. There's a lot of people in the UFC when I started that would have 2 fights and they're out. I was in there for almost a decade, and I feel like I could even call them now and go back.
That's freaking cool, dude.
You know what I mean? Because they know that I take this serious. I don't mess around. Like I'm not beer drinking, smoking cigarettes, and then trying to show up to a fight.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go put in a camp for you. I'm gonna go try to make the company money, and that's what it comes down to, right? And that's why I think these athletes need to understand. Rodeo athletes need to understand that there's a mindset change that needs to start happening in the sport, and especially for it to go like mainstream. I even see it in interviews and stuff where it's so funny. And me and my wife laugh all the time about it, where these guys are like, yeah, I'm just blessed to be here. And, shucks, what I mean? I'm like, man, like bring some fire to this interview. You know what I mean? Like, you throw down the steer, you see some of these guys like get pumped, and then the crowd explodes, and then you see some of these guys that have a 3-7 and they stand up and walk out, and it's like crickets. You're like, dude, like you're an entertainer as well as an athlete, and that'll get you paid, right? That'll get you your sponsorships. You throw down that steer in 3 seconds, 3 seconds or whatever it is, you're winning the round, you're freaking getting the crowd pumped up, and they're stoked, and they're replaying you that throw, which shows your logo, sponsors, which time and time again, because of your reaction to it. Like that's what that sport needs. And I'm starting to see how some of them, and again, I'm from the outside looking in, and I haven't lived this life, and I'm just getting into it, but these are just little things that I see coming from the MMA world.
Yeah, you're 100% similar. Right. And that transition is like it's happening. Like we're seeing it start to happen. So
it is, yeah, and it's really cool to see it too, because it really does remind me of like the UFC, the old UFC days. It's cool.
The sport is definitely heading to a new spot. Have you? I mean, you just started, but like, have you given any thought to like the American or anything like that?
Yeah,
like competing.
I went.
That'd be right up your alley.
Dude, I went to the NFR for the first time this last year, and I was just there on like a Tuesday or something like that, because I just kind of, that's how I operate, right? Like I remember the same feeling when I went to a UFC fight. I think it was in 2009. It's broken. I went in 2009, and I watched a heavyweight fight, and it was Cain Velasquez. I forget who he was fighting, but he dominated, right? And I remember leaving that place and being like, I have a lot of work to put in, and I remember leaving the NFR this year and being like, I have a lot of work to put in, especially like, with the bulldogging and stuff like that, there's a little bit of a time limit on it, because you're using your body, right? Like age is a factor. Like you can't be much older than me and be super competitive, but team roping, you can go a little bit longer, right? it's
a lot longer.
A little bit more of a skill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like a baseball, I would guess. Maybe not, but
Golf.
but it's kind of more of like a skill set,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm the very beginning, but that's a goal of mine, is to get as good as I can. And if I was just watching the American on the Cowboy Channel, and again, watch the NFR. I even took a picture of it on my phone of just sitting there in the stadium, so I can remember that feeling.
That's so cool.
That is, dude.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So we'll see. I mean, I might, what are the chances? But man, how amazing of a story would that be?
Oh man,
Travis, something tells me that you're not one to look at the chances at the beginning and take no for an answer.
Like he said, I just did it. I just go and do it. Well, I was thinking about the steer wrestling, and we've got some connections to some incredible steer wrestling coaches and some guys that are some multi-time world champions. I know would be more than willing to help you out. So we can text back and forth about it, but they're over in Texas, but we could definitely link that up. No problem, dude. That'd be so cool. And I think that I could see it now, man. I can see you running at AT&T for $1 million. That would be the coolest damn thing ever. And last year, a guy who played football in the NFL for a period of years, I forgot his name, but he did the same thing too, and he made it to the final round for the $1 million. Ended up missing his steer, I think. But it's like those times where majority of people are in this high pressure situation, they're scattered, and for you it's going to be the opposite. You're so primed and used to being in that ain't going to be the worry. You're just like, God, I hope I don't look dumb in front of all these people. Like that's what Cody said. I don't get nervous on stage, but I hope I don't look freaking stupid in front of everybody roping the steer. Like so I think that, man, what a cool deal.
I think, was that one of your questions about like the environment maybe, but I'll tell you. So my first fight was in Pearl at the Palms, and it's like a Coliseum. Like the seats kind of go straight up, right? It's not very like fanned out, right? Like this. It's more like that. Like straight up almost. And so that was a great feeling. It was cool because it was kind of close, and
everyone's on top
people
of you.
were like on top of you. Yeah. My next fight was against Czech Congo at the O2 Arena in London. And I remember that was the first time where, if you think of like in movies when, you see a little like piece of concrete on a concrete slab, maybe that chipped off, right? Chipped out of a crack, and you see it like bouncing around because it's just like, doing that, like just that pounding sound, and the fans cheering and stomping their feet and screaming and everything like that, reverberating in your chest. That was the first time I ever felt that, and I got so addicted to that.
Oh man,
it was
I've got
like
chills. You just describing it, man. That's insane.
Yeah, it was walking out to that, and even though I was the enemy because I was on his territory, like, man, those boos, I was like, I'm gonna show you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm gonna freaking show you, and so walking out there, I had like that chip on my shoulder, and it was just like, Joe, like, I'm ready for you, but I had that feeling, right? Because I had done all my work.
Just gonna say that.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I was like, I know what to do. I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna turn this shit around. You know what I mean? So
that's the shit, man. Like if everyone could adopt that, like you do not want to show up to the rodeo or the competition or the fight or anything. You're done thinking. We've done the thinking before. We are only reacting and doing what we are trained to do. And that's when everything is fun. Like that's when you get to enjoy what you're doing. And I remember going to rodeo after rodeo thinking so much before I'd get on. I got to do this little thing better. I got to do this more. And I would get dick slammed every time. And I had a freak injury. I had a horse flip over with me, broke my back. I had a spine fusion. 7 years later, I got the opportunity to go do it again. And I trained like I had thought about it for 7 years, and trained appropriately, did my mental training appropriately. My sister-in-law is an Olympic pairs figure skater, and she does a mental performance coaching thing now.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really poor way of explaining that. Forgive me, Paige. But and she helped me a lot with my mindset, because I had a lot of stuff I had to work through of like just the fear of that happening again, and the biggest thing was coming to reality, like that can't happen again. You have to be okay with it. But if you do all these things that you've trained and do them like you've trained them to do, that ain't going to happen. You're going to, everything will be fine. And when I could finally figure out that all the thinking happened before, and if I could do everything I needed to then, and I showed up, and all I had to think about was the 2 or 3 things I knew I needed to do my job, and having fun. It was
in the moment. Though.
Yeah. Being
That's
in
what
it.
people,
Yes.
like people, and I don't think you understand, like when you are thinking too much, you're not in the moment. Do you see what I mean? Like if you're in the moment, you're hyper focused in that moment, then reactions and instincts kick in. But when you're thinking, you're a step behind. You're not in the moment. You're a step behind the moment. So, in fighting, it was like you didn't see that right because you weren't in the moment. You were a step behind. You were thinking about the right instead of just reacting to the right. Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
And so, I'm sure in rodeo was with the rough stock, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, I was thinking about not going down, but now I'm down. You know what I mean? Like I'm already here.
Yeah.
The animal went left or whatever they do. It's like, shoot, and that's all you really can do when you're thinking about it. But when you're in the moment, that's the key.
That's when it happens and goes well. And it's hilarious at our schools, man. We run back film and we watch the film and what happened here. And you can see the first 2 seconds, adrenaline is peaked. They are not able to think because there's so much adrenaline pumping usually. And you can see it like jump 3, 4, and 5. You can start seeing them get coherent and start thinking, but they are doing the first 2 jumps where they can't even think is perfect. They could not do anything any better. And then all of a sudden that brain switches on. And it's like, oh, we're half a second. Oh, we're a full second behind now. Oh God. Yep. You just got yanked down. What happened? Well, you thought that was the problem. Don't think. We just do the thing we've been training you to do. Trust it, And it's funny because you can see it literally happen. The moment it happens, like, oh yeah, your brain just turned on there. Why'd we do that? Like, why aren't we thinking lift us at our feet? Lift us at your feet. That's it. Just do the thing.
Then you find yourself in what was that? Forgetting Sarah Marshall with Kunu, the surf instructor. He's like, no, do less. Do less.
Or something. Who's the surf instructor in that?
Yeah, it's that one. It's that kind of taller. He's kind of a goofy looking actor, but he's hilarious. He's like, no, now you got to do more than that, but you're doing too much. But you got to do less. But now you got to do more. It's like, yeah,
that's it.
I get it. But the thing is, you can't understand unless you've been there, and the way to have been there is to go do it. And I think that's why people that have that ability to just go do it have that success, is they get over that fear of maybe failure or whatever because they just want to do it. Like for me, I could have stopped roping after I embarrassed the hell out of myself at that first jackpot and just walked away, whatever. And I was like, no. I'm not okay with that for myself, And I remember that first year too. I stopped thinking. I got hyper focused, saw my target, everything else. I was ready, and boom, it would have been a pretty decent run, probably like a 6 or probably mid 6 run if my healer would have caught. People were kind of moving out of the way. You know what I mean? They line up on that left side.
Yeah.
They're up. I was like, yeah.
We're in it.
Yeah,
we're in it, dude. That's so cool. Man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today and to hear about, man, your whole story and the evolution of your family and you as an athlete. And I could not be more pumped about you team roping and steer wrestling. And we're definitely going to have you back on because I want to check in on how everything's going here down the road. And if there's any way, dude, that we can help you, please holler at us, call us, text us. We're around. Turns out this is all we do is talk about rodeo. Been working out. So
I'm a sponge, man. Any guidance or anything you want to pass down, any knowledge, man. That's my wife always makes fun of me. She's like, you pick things up so quick. It's ridiculous. She'd been training since she was 11. She obviously accomplished so much more than I did in MMA, but she had been training since she was 11 and went to Olympics. We took Olympics, I think twice, and took bronze in one, and then, changed the game of MMA, and then same thing in the WWE and all that kind of stuff. But she had been an athlete since she was young. She's like, so I kind of expect that of myself. She's like, what you did is crazy, because you were at the age of 26, and it was like, oh yeah, I want to do jiu-jitsu. And then like 5 years later, you're ranked third in the world. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? But it's just hard work and belief in yourself, and just getting out there and do it. Like in order for me to have been there to learn from it, I had to go out and do it. That's what I'm doing with roping now and bulldogging now. Like, I'm focused on it. My wife was just, I made $450, came home like, yeah. Babe. You know what I mean? I said, now I know why team ropers are broke, because this shit doesn't pay for anything. You know what I mean? Like, I would literally have to do this like twice a day, to like pay for gas and feed and horse and trailer, and but it's funny because I think a lot of people, like, when I cruise up, I have a livestock trailer. I have my truck. I drive up from here to Oregon a bunch, so I got a dually. So I have a nicer truck and stuff, but I don't like spend exorbitant amount of money to live that comfortably when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Like, I have nice things. Like, I have a nice saddle. I got lucky with my horse. Don't get me wrong. I just wanted a ranch horse, but then come to find out, rewatching his videos after I learned more about this, that guy has been heading on him, you know what I mean? And doing well. And he shows it. Like, he's a good horse. But I don't have a big living quarters trailer and this and that. And like, if I go down to Arizona, it's like, I'm going to be doing what I got to do. You know what I mean? I'm not going to just be all posh and living this high life because it's something I did before. If I want to make it in this industry, it's like, I'm making sure I'm okay, but I'm going to make this career, this sport, pay for it.
That's cool.
So
it is.
So as I progress in this sport, I'll be able to have the nicer things.
Well, you invested in the right things, man. Your equipment, the things to get the job done is what matters. You see people rolling around all these fancy rigs all the time. They got more money than they have sense, and they have more horsepower than they know how to ride. And they can dump all the money into those things, but like, it doesn't matter if you haven't mastered the thing. And a lot of people just don't get that. Like, you put the money in, you could go buy all those things if you wanted to, sure, but that's not going to make you a better roper.
It doesn't make you better in the arena.
No.
You can go buy $100,000 horse. If you can't put that rope on some horns, what does that $100,000 horse do for you? Sits there and eats your hay. He eats your feed.
Pisses you off.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. No, it's so important, and just the mindset of an athlete, man. To hear your approach to not just sport but life has been an absolute pleasure, dude. So thanks for coming on today, man. And man. Where can people follow you guys?
You can follow me, Travis Browne MMA, on Instagram and all that stuff. I'm actually looking into getting just my name, but somebody owns it, so I have to talk with them and try to get that over, because I'm kind of past just the MMA. I was so, again, I was in it. It was Travis Browne MMA. Everything was MMA. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, Browsey Acres, you can see on my shirt. It's a combination of me and my wife's name, Browsey.
I'm embarrassed at how long it took me to put that together.
What's that?
How long it took me to put the Browsey, the combination of names. It was about halfway through this episode, and I was like,
I get it. Yeah. And and it's funny, the fans just kind of started that, and we just kind of went with it.
That's cool.
It was like, just kind of took it and owned it and went with it. But yeah, Browsey Acres, we have Wagyu and pasture raised poultry and our regenerative ranch. And that's what we're doing now.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, man, and getting to chat with you. And to everybody listening, we'll catch you later. We know that you're committed to upping your game in the arena, and we're teaming up with the Rodeo Now app to help you do just that. The Rodeo Now app allows you to record, upload, and catalog your rides and runs, review your performances in slow motion, and our favorite feature, if you're not familiar with your stock draw, you can search your animal by name to get all the intel you need to make your next ride a winning one. Join the rodeo revolution today and download the Rodeo Now app for free. It's available in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store.
If you want to learn more about our coaches and program options, make sure to swing over to our website at www.championlivingfitness.com. You can fill out the Become an Athlete form to set up your free consultation and have all your questions answered by a coach.